Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. It's another day at the office for me. Welcome to another episode of People Watching. I'm your host, Garrett J. Lawrence. The past 24 hours have been a crazy 24 hours. We released an episode yesterday covering kind of this week's news. And now that I've got some time on my hands, I just got a couple things I wanted to talk about kind of briefly today. We had a terror attack in Australia. There has been some conflict over in Syria as things start to heighten over there in terms of a little possible proxy war. There was a shooting at Brown University last night, and as well as Sean Ryan as kind of some more political talk. Sean Ryan is in pursuit of having a good old sit-down conversation with Dan Crenshaw after Crenshaw tried to sue him for defamation, which is just really silly in my opinion, but we're going to talk about that today. And so to kind of get things rolling, I wanted to talk about the terror attack that happened this morning in Australia, a country that has progressively started to ban guns, gun ownership at all. We had a terror attack yesterday. It was Islamic. It was jihad. It was jihad motivated, you could say. It targeted Judeo-Christians and some Jewish people on a day celebrating Hanukkah at Bondi Beach. So this was, racially and ethnically and religiously motivated. This was not just some silly little thing that kind of happened to happen like a normal terrorist attack. So this was targeted. Despite what some people might want to try to say. And so to kind of get things rolling, this happened, I believe it was early this morning. We're over at Bondi Beach. Again, like I said, these terrorists targeted the Hanukkah site for a celebration called Hanukkah by the Sea. They were using bolt-action rifles. This kind of, again, goes hand in hand with the narrative right now that I believe this firmly. Even if you try to ban guns, it might very, very minimally, decrease gun violence, but bad people are going to still get guns. And these two men got bolt-action rifles. Obviously, they were expecting no response or no fast response because it takes a while to reload and cock these weapons to fire them again. I say a while, but just in comparison to modern day handguns and assault rifles, and so on and so forth. And so they were ready to enact terror on these people, and they were okay with, they were okay with harming these people and possibly even dying in response, but they were not expecting a quick response, which is really just a testament to where Australia and their politics and their policies are at right now. They are a country that has live as an example similar to the UK, where they've imported the third world. They've imported thousands of Islamic refugees. And a lot of these organizations are funded by very large billionaire organizations, very large Jewish organizations that have promoted this influx in immigration to Australia. We've seen a buildup of these Islamic attacks kind of repeatedly in the last, since forever, actually. I don't need to give you specific dates. And I think it's kind of a moment in time where we can stop pretending that these aren't, these are not religiously motivated. And we can stop pretending that, Islam is the religion of peace. That's false. Islam does not stand for religion of peace or belief of or faith in peace, like some people try to say it stands for. In fact, it stands for I hope I'm getting this right. It's the submission to Allah and His teachings. And so we have this incident, and I think it's time for me to really hit on the head that Islam is cancer. It's a cancerous religion. It's non-cohesive with American culture, with Australian culture, with any culture on the planet. There's a reason that these these groups of people are harmful to societies. You might say, well, Islam is not full of extremists. And I might agree with you. These people might not objectively want to harm me or my heritage or my family, but like Jared Taylor has said before, these people kind of indirectly support the subduing and the eradication of peaceful cultures and cohesive and progressive cultures, specifically American culture, and you could even say progressive Australian culture. And so you import that into your country, and regardless of whether the group of people is full of extremists or not, what they believe in inevitably is going to target and target your beliefs, and there will be an attempt to dismantle what you believe in, regardless of the group of people and whether they're extremist or not. That is Islam. That is how it works. That is what they believe in. Versus Christianity, which is not the subduing and eradication of Western culture. In fact, it promotes Western culture, and it promotes a belief system of love. But love does not mean niceness. Does not mean it does not mean it is tolerant. It is not a tolerant belief system. And love, again, is kind, but kindness, again, is not niceness. So I think a lot of Christians today and people in other cultures think that Christianity's version of kindness means nice. It's not. Kindness and love is preventing your brother from stumbling. If your brother continues down a path of mistakes and sin, you correct him. You give him a slap on the wrist, essentially. You don't condone it. You don't continue to support it. This goes for homosexuality. This goes for sexual identity. This goes for gender dysphoria, transgenderism, alcoholism, drug abuse. It goes for everything. It goes for everything. Those things are things that will always lead you down a path of destruction. And I don't need to sound extreme when I say that. I don't need to be like, oh, well, you're going to go burn in hell. It's like there is secular evidence that these things are negative, have a negative effect on your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, your family, your friends, and then it continues to extend outside of that into your society and your government. And it's an upspringing of corruption from within, and some people don't believe that's even possible. Some people think that everybody's inherently good, but the Bible says otherwise. That's why I believe in the Bible, because that's why I believe in Jesus, and that's why I believe Jesus is the Son of God. He's not just some prophet. He's not some guy boiling in excrement, just like some Jewish texts say. And in Islam, he's not just a really good prophet. He is the Son of God. Even the Quran admits to that. Even the Quran says that he will return during Revelation and he will come riding like lightning. Even the Quran says that. But a lot of people like to leave that part out. A lot of Muslims like to leave the facts out. But I say all this to mainly get to the point that Islam, again, is a non-cohesive, violent, extreme, and indirectly harmful belief system. And that's why we get events like this. And so to talk about the stats on what happened today, we have 12 people that were killed, including one assistant and a police officer. And then we have about 29 people injured. If you've seen the videos, it's very horrific. It's very fast paced. It's just people running off of Bondi Beach. We had a fellow Muslim man, mad respect for him, huge respect for him, who went and he disabled one of the gunmen and took his gun. However, people that are wanting to deem this as heroism, I want to put an asterisk on the heroism because this is a guy, he may have disabled a man that slaughtered several people. It's just really kind of disappointing to me that there was no attempt to disable the guy. You know what I mean? He didn't shoot him in the leg. He didn't do anything. He took his gun, and essentially after the other guy ran off, he put his gun down. They found IEDs in these people's in these people's vehicles. And these IEDs are, I've got some details on that, but they're improvised explosive devices, so they're just hodgepodge bombs, essentially. And they found these in the vehicle, so even if you took the gun away, it's still going to go and try to harm people. And when we say it was a heroic act, I agree, but more could have been done. You took the weapon from him. You should have disabled him. And I think I think maybe because he was Muslim and he saw another Muslim brother, and he may have recognized them as, oh, I'm going to prevent him from doing this, but I'm not going to kill him. And some might say it's controversial for me, and they say it might be contradictory of me, because you might want to try and pull the verse out of the Bible, thou shalt not kill. That gets taken out of context in some situations, and in other situations it is used. But I think this target should have been neutralized to the least, Anyway, so they had it was obviously 2 or more gunmen, and one of them was killed, and one has been put in custody. This was again, they had bombs, so this kind of deems this as a premeditated act of violence and terrorism. It was found in their vehicle. The New South Wales Police and Prime Minister Anthony Albanese declared it a terrorist incident and a targeted attack on Jewish Australians, explicitly calling it an act of evil anti-Semitism, and that's via SBS. And so we've got a picture of one of the guys, so we all can look at him in glory. I believe this is the guy that was shot, but this is one of the men who was targeting civilians today with his weapon. Burn in hell, buddy. Burn in hell. Okay? I hope they turned you into Swiss cheese. I really do. Because you and your culture and your ideology is just a giant cesspool of evil and cancer. You and your ideology, it's a cancer to this earth. And I don't mean that lightly at all. In fact, I want to call my Muslim brothers and sisters, and especially the women and children, that you guys got to get out. You got to get out, and you got to get out fast. You got to realize that there is only one true God, and that's Jesus Christ. Okay? There's only one true God, only one thing you can worship. It's not some Prophet Muhammad. It's not any of these people. It's not some unicorn donkey that was flown up to flown into heaven or anything. It's not Moses. It's not David. It's nobody. It is, and we're reminded of this in the Transfiguration in Mark 9, that after Jesus meets with Moses and God, and I believe, is it Elijah? They leave, and it's reminding the disciples that all this great stuff can happen. All this great stuff can happen, and you can witness these other prophets and these miracles and everything. But at the end of the day, it's just Jesus. It's just Jesus, the one true Almighty God. And one day He's going to come back, and He's going to crack the sky open, and you're going to really wish that you didn't follow Muhammad and his 9-year-old bride. But I believe God will have mercy on you. I think He will. But, and so, again, this is not a religion of peace. The premeditated slaughter of innocent people celebrating a holy day involving the IEDs is, again, a textbook definition of religious terrorism. The consistent threat of religious-motivated violence and the similar attacks across the globe makes the narrative of a few bad apples entirely indefensible. I'm really tired of the idea that, only 10% of Islam is, full of terrorism. Okay, this is jihad. They are doing this because their God calls them to do so. Okay, and again, Islam is just simply a perversion of Christianity. It is an antichrist version of Christianity. You could even say the same for, Orthodox Judaism. You could even say the same. I would go as far to say the same. It's a twisting of the actual story of Jesus Christ. And it is a manipulation of the gospel, and it's a manipulation of God's wonderful story. That does not mean I'm calling Judeo-Christians or, the Jews violent terrorists, though their culture may be non-cohesive with American culture a lot of the time too, and though their fingers may be in our government and in our military-industrial complex, and they may cost us a lot of money, and we may have sent them $163 billion since 1960, but, again, Donald Trump's going to make my gas cheaper, so I guess it doesn't matter. This attack was targeted act of jihad violence rooted in an ideology hostile to not just Western, but also Judeo-Christian values. I agree with this. The cost of political correctness. Sources indicate that this tragedy was predictable. This is, again, very predictable. You import the third world, you get the third world. You import Islam, you get Islam. The Australian government, specifically the Albanese administration, had been warned about a developing terrorist campaign, yet treated it as a community relations problem. Again, putting the blame on the community, and that maybe they're in fear of the immigrants because they're racist and they're all a bunch of Nazis. The Australia First citizens, they're all Nazis. The failure to enforce public order against aggressive anti-Semitic demonstrations in the preceding months established a permissive environment for this escalation. I'm not even going to say that Islam is only anti-Semitic. I think it's silly that a lot of the news outlets are framing this incident as just anti-Semitic, because we have seen it across all nations and all cultures and all societies. Islam comes in, they commit terror. Islam comes in, they coordinate, and they hate people, they hate Christians, they think Jesus is just a simple prophet, and they think that they're the elite race, and they believe jihad is the commandment. I have read the Quran. Jihad is just the commandment to kill the infidel. What's the infidel? It's anyone who doesn't follow Allah. So if you are not following Allah, okay, that qualifies everybody in the world other than a practicing Muslim to be executed under the guise of jihad. And jihad normalizes this, and jihad permits this. They don't care about what the law, the American law, the Australian law says, because it is their culture. That's why they come to America, the UK, and they RAPE little girls and your girlfriend and your wife and your daughters and your children. You have women who will literally go into bars, sit next to a guy, put a cover over their drink, and then they'll vote for the importation of the third world and a bunch of RAPists and Muslim extremists and Muslim psychopaths and terrorists. They will literally cover their drink next to a harmless white guy, wonder why he left when she covered her drink at a bar. Listen, it's fine. Listen, covering your drink is fine. But when you make a giant attitude, and we have these liberal freaking women in the US and the UK and the EU, and they go and they make a big scene about how horrible American and European white men are, and how Christian men are psychopaths, and they got to make a big fit of it. And then they go and they import the third world. They import Islamic extremist, terrorist, rapists. That's what they vote for. That's what they're voting for. And they're surprised when it comes to the US and when it comes to Australia. They're surprised. You create a permissive environment that allows this to happen, and it can only change when we start kicking these people the hell out. We start throwing them into prison. We start ruthlessly punishing these people in all degrees. That's when it changes. When you prioritize community harmony, okay, over national security and the protections of your citizens, blood will be spilled. Your suicidal empathy prioritizes community and multiculturalism. You get pictures like this. You get pictures like this. You get pictures like that. When you emphasize multiculturalism and immigration, and it's more important for our nation to represent these large swaths of immigration and importing of cultures, and they're never going to assimilate. You do that, you will have blood. That is the lesson. I refuse to argue with anybody anymore about this. I refuse for people to be like, but no, they are assimilating, they are changing. Then why do these things keep happening? Why is there illegal labor happening? Why are Americans losing jobs? Why are Americans not getting paid? Why are Australians getting killed? Why are mass shootings happening? Why are stabbings and freaking terrorist attacks and women being set on fire on the subways in the UK? Like, why is that happening? When did that all start happening? And it happened 40 years ago when we decided to change how immigration was done on a global scale, and we invited everybody in with zero vetting. And we said, you know what? If that means it's the eradication indirectly of my culture, that is fine. And I'll go to bed with it. That's what you've done. Anyway, Syria. The conflict continues, as usual. Another psychopathic country. On December 13th, so this is yesterday, there were 2 U.S. Army soldiers and 1 U.S. civilian interpreter were killed in an attack in Syria. I have the pictures of the vehicle. I can't get them to pull up for some reason because it's through Instagram, but this is through Leading Report. They literally ambushed a white Toyota Tacoma in Syria and shot everybody in the car. Swiss cheese the whole car. The U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, and President Trump attributed the ambush to the Islamic State, ISIS, saying the lone gunman was an ISIS member. The American personnel were on a joint patrol with Syrian forces as part of an ongoing counter-ISIS operation. President Trump vowed very serious retaliation on Truth Social and to reporters, stating, "We will retaliate." Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth added that those who target Americans will, quote, spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you, end quote. That's the attitude I want. That's the attitude I want. You hurt our American people, you will be punished, and we will find you, and we will kill you. Here's my caveat, though. Why is that our attitude when it happens overseas? Charlie Kirk was killed 3 months ago. Nothing has been done. No one's been held accountable. Tyler Robinson maybe is going to jail. He's smirking in the camera. Give that kid the death penalty. Kash Patel is a pathetic, washed, I was going to say some other really mean words. I was going to probably call him a racial slur. But I think most of us already are aware of that and agree with that, given his girlfriend's a freaking Mossad honeypot, and he's hiring professional FBI agents to drive her drunk friends home from the club. Come at me, Kash Patel. I don't care. You're an embarrassment to this administration, to the United States. You're a shill for the Epstein files. You've done a horrible job. You've held nobody accountable. And then on top of that, with the Charlie Kirk stuff, we've got all this TPUSA drama coming out. Erica Kirk's a freaking shill for Mossad too, coming on an interview saying Shabbat Shalom. She's making sure everybody knows she's a good little Israeli asset. You know what I mean? She's getting mad at Candace Owens for asking the valid questions and wanting to know what the hell happened to her best friend. She's doing what I would do. And she's looking in the camera with her freaking insane makeup, her so much heavy makeup that it's straining the back of her neck. She's looking in the camera. She said, "Stop. Yeah, stop." You've got therapists chiming in on Twitter saying that type of defensiveness means she's hiding something. Freaking Turning Point's made $150 million off of Charlie Kirk's death, and nobody's questioning that? What is happening? But we need this attitude from Pete Hegseth, from Trump, when it happens on American soil. Okay? But even at that, they sometimes will give us this attitude. They'll give us this attitude, right? And it's all theater. It's all just riling up the fan base, but no execution. That's everything that happened with Epstein files. It took the freaking Donald Trump 6 months of getting buried by the press and buried by other Republicans and other conservative influencers and people like Thomas Massey, Ro Khanna, and MTG, right? Who were burying him, for him to say, all right, fine, I'll go and I'll follow through on my promise of releasing the Epstein files. That's ridiculous. So what I want to see is I want to see Pete Hegseth and his little Secretary of War to go do something about it. Stop talking. All they do is talk. If you guys have realized anything in the last year, right? It's all talk. There's been great improvements in the economy, and we've targeted Venezuela now as an asset to combat China and Russia. That's a little bit of geopolitics right there. It's a little bit outside of my, my forte is talking about how trade works. But even at that, that's great that there are advancements being made there. But lately, it's all been talk. Right? Now, I'm going to say, though, ICE has been great. Deportations have been successful. I don't care about the casual 5 people, you know what I mean, that were like, oh, well, he's a legal citizen and he got detained by ICE. Guess what? That doesn't violate his freaking rights. That does not apply to due process. If the police think you committed a crime, they have the right to freaking interview you and detain you. They have the right. It's not a violation of anything. Okay? The other thing, too, is the left will leave this out when people are arrested or detained by ICE. Is you will have a girl, right? There's that one video of that girl in scrubs or whatever getting tackled to the ground. Her boyfriend, she was in the car with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend's here illegally. They ask her to pull over. They want to talk to him. She refuses. So what do? When they know you got somebody illegal in the car, and you refuse to let them talk to the person, they're gonna arrest you. They're gonna detain you. It's that simple. And we find this in every neighborhood. Listen, ICE is not just walking around scooping people up off the street. They are going into neighborhoods they've been tipped off by. They're finding, this is the thing. If you've got 10 Mexicans living in a house together and 2 of them are illegal, I wonder what's gonna happen. Unless you can give them your papers on the spot, which is why I say, hey, listen, if you are here legally, just for right now, carry your stuff on you. Just for right now, because I don't know, your buddy Alejandro might be here legally and he didn't tell you that, and he might rope you in. He might get you detained. That is your illegal friend's fault. If you get dragged in, that is because that is on you for not being hey, buddy, see all this deportation stuff going on? You might want to go get your papers squared away. But nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to talk about that because everybody's got their heads up their freaking butts and thinking they know everything. And they're just calling people who are pro-deportation and pro-change. They're calling them a freaking fascist and a Nazi. You know how retarded you sound when that's all you can say? When people are going to rallies like Nick Shirley and whoever else, going to rallies wanting to ask you, why are you here? Why are you supporting this thing? You can't even answer the question. And then when he gives you a hard question, you still can't answer that. You just call him a Nazi and a fascist. You realize that you look retarded. You look like an idiot. And you're going to continue to lose over and over and over again if you can't get your act together and realize that you're supporting something that is not going to be successful. Anyway, getting my energy out today. I'm really passionate. There's a promise of very serious retaliation is the minimum required response to this Syria altercation. Our enemies need to know that the cost of killing an American is exponentially higher than the perceived gain. This is not about nation building. This is about pure, unadulterated national defense. That's what it's about. Stop playing games. Stop talking. Walk it. This incident confirms that ISIS, despite being defeated on the battlefield, remains a persistent and deadly terror group within sleeper cells. This is a perpetual war against an ideology that seeks the destruction of the West. This is what I wrote, by the way. Any politician who claims ISIS is fully defeated, we hear this from people, is either delusional or deliberately misleading the American people. The sacrifice of these patriots proves that our fight is not over. By the way, when all of this is happening over in Syria, right, and we've got U.S. forces starting to move in, a school shooting happens. And I don't mean to be the guy with the tinfoil hat on, but I'm kind of exhausted because it just seems a little suspicious that the 2 people that were killed were previous survivors of other school shootings, okay? And they were activists of gun reform, and then they were killed. That's just a little too on the nose. It's a little too on the nose. We know the CIA and the FBI. Listen, when I talk to people about gun control, or I talk to my more liberal, socially and fiscally liberal friends, and we talk about gun control and we talk about past events and stuff, it's hard for some liberals, as critical as they are of the government, they can't imagine the government doing something illegal. That thing that might be illegal could be orchestrating shootings. Think about the Stephen Paddock situation, the Las Vegas shooting. He was shot from multiple different angles. There was enough the amount of ammunition spent is not enough to have lasted the 2 minutes he was shooting or so. And so it's bizarre. It kind of, my antennas go up when school shootings start to happen again at the same time as an event like an overseas conflict that starts to boil and there's a little bit of a provocative simmer happening. My antennas go up. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh, okay. So we have a terror attack in Australia. We got a terror attack earlier this week, and then we've got the Syria attack, right? And we've got Christmas parades. You got Christians who are afraid to go out to Christmas parades because they're in fear of Islamic terrorists, whatever. And it's just like it's boiling over to a point where if I were the FBI and I wanted to take people's guns, I would continue to orchestrate these things, because the whole point is not that it's not the Second Amendment is not just simply an amendment about having guns to be in a militia, right? It's not just about like being in a militia, and it's not just about protecting yourself. It is literally about protecting yourself from the government. They will try to take your guns. And people like to pretend that evil does not summon itself from within. And we like to pretend that it comes directly from the outside. And both that is true. We need to remember that the government will be the first group of people to violate your rights and enslave you, okay? The three pillars right now of the government is slavery, the Civil War, and World War II. These things changed how government works. Slavery, right, never went away. They just figured out a new format through employment, through dividing the family into two incomes, forcing the mother to work, continually fiscally draining you out of your mind. You can't buy a house. You can't go to college. Even if you do go to college and you do have the opportunity, you don't make enough money afterward to pay your freaking debt off soon enough. And it's just another form of enslavement, right? And they're enslaving you just to go fund wars, and they're poisoning you with their food, with the lights in the street. That sounds a little crazy, but it's true. They are, they're destroying your heritage. They are promoting multiculturalism and a melting pot theory. Melting pot, by the way, coined by a Jew in the 1910s. It's a promotion of a culture that is going to inevitably result in the destruction of the free world and the West itself. And part of that requires taking your guns away. So if I were the government and I wanted to take control of my people, I would. And I'm the government, and I do illegal stuff all the time, and a lot of people don't think I do. I would go and I would start up school shootings, and I'd create these dramatic stories of the two people out of all the people on campus, of all the people that were injured, the two people I do successfully kill happen to be anti-gun activists and survivors of past school shootings. That's really well orchestrated, honestly. I got to give them a hand. I would give them an Oscar for that. The two students killed, there were two students killed and 9 others were wounded. The shooter was a male in his 30s. A person of interest was later detained. I think it was a black guy. I don't know. That's irrelevant, though. The building was unlocked, and the attack occurred in a final exam review session. The president, by the way, had no idea where her students were at. Just pure incompetence, by the way. Brown University canceled all remaining classes, exams, papers, and projects for the semester following the attack. All right. The idea that an Ivy League institution with its immense resources and cannot secure a building during a major event like a final exam is absurd and inexcusable. The focus on political causes and safe spaces has eclipsed the fundamental physical safety of their students. I can agree with that. Yeah, crazy stuff. I'm tired of it. I'm really tired of it. We've only been talking for 35 minutes. Yeesh. I think I'm going to start to wrap up here on the Sean Ryan versus Dan Crenshaw stuff. So Crenshaw, by the way, a guy who has amassed so much wealth, it's ridiculous. He's had a big, expensive birthday bash. There's other Navy SEALs who've come out and said it was weird. He's heavily funded by AIPAC. I mean, what else can we talk about? I mean, just like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, she had an asset value of like $25 million by the time she resigned. It's just to the point where it's too inexcusable. I think there should be a yearly audit of finances when it comes to congressmen and congresswomen. I think it's hilarious that we're allowing these people to get super rich and then like try and attack people with a defamation lawsuit for asking questions. And that's what's happening to Sean Ryan. And so Sean Ryan responded, dismissed the, defamation suit from his office. His office, Sean Ryan's lawyer did a really good job, or attorney did a really good job of defending him. And so I guess they're going to meet on a podcast at some point in January. But the public disagreement stems from accusations made by Sean Ryan, a former Navy SEAL and the host of the Sean Ryan Show, regarding Congressman Dan Crenshaw's actions, associations, and financial integrity while in office. The core points of Ryan's criticism often revolve around Crenshaw's political stances, which critics argue align more with foreign policy establishment hawks than with a truly America First agenda. Again, I thought Crenshaw was an American patriot, but it turns out he's just a shill for foreign governments. And I would say that accusation of him being a shill is leveled against politicians who are perceived as being overly supportive of endless foreign wars and international bodies, benefiting from the military-industrial complex and foreign lobbying money. AIPAC. This taps into the belief that Congress should exclusively prioritize U.S. citizens. Again, that's my nationalism coming out. I believe that. We need to stop funding foreign wars. We need to prioritize our actual tax-paying citizens. Legal citizens, by the way. Blah, 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 blah. So I think my criticism of the financial scrutiny and stuff, I think it kind of highlights the common feeling we all have, the common complaint that the rapid and untraceable accumulation of wealth is a suspicion that could be related to insider trading, lobbying connections, or just regular investment deals, or, the big thing being, stock investment and stuff. But when a decorated veteran or a symbol of selfless service enters the DC swamp and appears to adopt the establishment's language and priorities, it is a betrayal of the highest order. The shift from battlefield warrior to creature of DC is prima facie evidence of the corrupting influence of power and money. Duh. I'm going to sit here and kind of demand transparency and audits. The only way to restore faith in our representatives is through radical financial transparency. The idea of a mandatory annual public forensic audit for every congressman and congresswoman is not a fringe idea. In fact, I think everybody shares that sentiment. It is a necessity for a government of the people. If you are serving the nation, your finances should be an open book to verify that your loyalty is to your constituents, not to foreign interests or corporate lobbyists. I would even add to that when you sign your oath of allegiance, when you become a citizen and then therefore eventually become a congressman, a senator, or so on and so forth, you share allegiance with the United States. Isn't that crazy that we literally let people immigrate here, vote in our elections, or become a person in office, and they will literally support their home country, even if they've taken the oath of allegiance when it came to it. When in your oath of allegiance, it is there to force you, into allegiance, whether that is in a social or community or even military aspect. And so the immediate filing of a defamation lawsuit in response to Ryan's accusations, rather than providing open, clear, and documented financial evidence to the public, is a move that only serves to make the accused look guilty. Again, like I said, if Ryan, everybody makes criticism of congressmen all the time and stuff, and MTG and Thomas Massie, whoever else you want to name, and it's hilarious how his first response was to just go ahead and create a lawsuit out of it. It immediately poises him as guilty. And so truth defends itself. The guilty hide behind lawyers. If Crenshaw has nothing to hide, a full and voluntary public discourse would end the debate instantly and vindicate him. His decision to sue reinforces the accusation that he is a creature of the system. He's a swamp monster. Using his power to silence critics instead of being transparent with his voters. Yeah. Be transparent, and I think it's going to save you a lot of trouble. I would say the same for Donald Trump, for J.D. Vance, for Pete Hegseth, for Kash Patel. All of the above. You guys got to be more transparent. It's what the American people want. It's what we voted for. Yeah. So anyway, that was fun talking about Sean Ryan and Dan Crenshaw. And then I think we need to continue to emphasize that Islam is a cancer when it comes to the attacks in Australia. We need to stop talking talk and start walking our talk. Specifically, the people in office. You guys need to do that. And I think we really do need to question the sources and the origins of a lot of these school shootings or violent acts, and how they may be used to take our rights away. And I'm tired of pretending like guns can't solve the problem. Now, I will sit here and say that, yeah, better background checks and better verifications and better, red flag monitoring for purchasing of guns. I'm totally for that. I am not against that. What I'm against is a full ban on weapons, on guns. That's all I got today. My name is Garrett J. Lawrence, and this has been another episode of People Watching. See you on the next one.